Hello and welcome to the Elephant Sport Football Show. In this episode, we'll be previewing a massive summer of international football with Euro 2020 fast approaching. In today's episode, with guests Harry Currell and Brandon Prangle, we're going to be discussing who we think is going to win the tournament, who we reckon the underdogs could be, and of course, what England's chances are looking like with just under 4 months till the big kick-off. Let's kick off the discussion though by talking about the current favourites. I think a suitable place to start would be with the current holders, Portugal, who of course defeated France in the final of Euro 2016. Harry, what do you make of Portugal's chances coming into this tournament? I mean, is it all down to Ronaldo?
I think, yeah, pretty much. Ronaldo is their main man, he is their talisman. He is the player that has done it before for them many times in tournaments. You saw in Euro 2016, Portugal weren't particularly good in that tournament. You know, they only, in the group stage, they had 3 draws. They didn't win a game in the group stage. And Ronaldo really carried them through. Eventually in the final, obviously Ronaldo got injured and they still managed to win it. But he was their main man. He did score most of their goals throughout the tournament. So I think a lot will be down to the form of Ronaldo, how he comes in the tournament. He's obviously been very good for Juventus in the last few months. At the start of the season, he wasn't too good. So a lot will come down to him. But they do also have some other good players. You look at Bruno Fernandes, who obviously recently joined Man U. He's made a good start there. They have obviously players like Jota and Neves, who are obviously very good. So yeah, they have some other good players, but Ronaldo is their main man, and a lot will come down to whether he can fire them to glory or not.
Brandon, are you in agreement? Obviously, Ronaldo in his mid-30s now, but he can still make that difference. He's still that match winner for Portugal, isn't he? Although, as Harry said, they have got other good players like Fernandes, Silva, and those kind of guys.
Yeah, Ronaldo's obviously a fantastic player, and at the age that he is at, and still being able to do it is phenomenal. He just seems to have, every time it's a major tournament, he just seems to kick on and constantly be able to do what he does best. But I think this Portugal team, they're slowly but surely moving away from just being about Ronaldo. I think their midfield is really well balanced. I think they've got a good blend. Now the defence, I think it works. It's not a brilliant defence, but in terms of getting it done, I think they can outscore teams. And with Bernardo Silva and Jota on the wing, I think that their crosses will cause enough chaos that if Ronaldo doesn't put it in, someone else will be able to get there. And let's be honest, they're actually in a hard group. So it's a toss-up between whether they've got the guts to beat a team like France and Germany. And Germany, it depends who turns up, and France, they've shown they can beat them. So there is a definite opportunity that if Ronaldo's up and willing for it and a team are all ready to go, I think they can definitely come out of this group strong.
Let's talk about one of the teams in their group, and of course the team they beat in the last Euros in the final, France. They bounced back fantastically well from the disappointment of losing the final in their home country in the last Euros by winning the World Cup. What do you think their chances are, Brandon, of being able to win back-to-back tournaments and being successful in this Euro 2020?
Well, I'd have to say they're massive favourites. The one thing about France's squad is if you take any of their players out, they have someone just as good behind them, and that is going to be the problem for all the other teams that have to face them, that there's just so many good players. I mean, they won a World Cup with Giroud up front that doesn't always play games, and it's possibly going to be the case again where he doesn't play a lot and he could be the vocal point again because he stitches the team together. But when you've got players like Kanté, you've got Griezmann in there, and even, I mean, the fact they haven't had Lloris for quite a while, he could be coming back. I mean, he's still a good shot stopper. So I think that their team, they're good enough to bulldoze teams, and if they get out of that group, they're going to be really hard to beat, and they're probably the favourites, I'd say, to win it.
Harry, are you in agreement that France's sheer sort of strength in depth is going to really be important for them? And as Brandon said, do you think they've got a chance of winning it?
Yeah, definitely. I think they have to be considered one of the top favourites. Obviously, they were runners-up last time and then went on to back up with a World Cup win in 2018. So you look at their team, they've got people like Martial and Lacazette can't even get in the squad, it seems. So they have a lot of depth, obviously, as well as in defence. Laporte, you can't even get in the squad, and yet he's one of the best centre-backs in the Premier League and probably the world. So yeah, you have to say France, one of the big favourites for me. A lot will depend on what team they select. You look at Giroud, is he going to start for them? He obviously hasn't played a lot for Chelsea this season, but he seems to come alive for France in tournaments. Him and Griezmann have a good partnership going. So yeah, I think France, you'd say that I'd back them to go a long way in this tournament, definitely.
Obviously, as an Arsenal fan, you know all about Giroud and obviously all about Lacazette. I mean, can you understand why they're going with Giroud ahead of someone like that?
Yeah, definitely. Well, Lacazette this season has not delivered really, but there's other options. People like Martial has done very well for Man United this season, so I'm not really sure why they keep positioning with Giroud, but it does seem to work for them. Yeah, that partnership with Griezmann, as I mentioned, does seem to be a pretty successful one. It has worked for them, obviously worked for them in the World Cup. So yeah, a lot will depend on that, and also someone like Paul Pogba, will he be back fit? Will he be ready for the tournament? He had a big influence in 2018, so yeah, it's a lot of questions to be asked about France, but certainly they have the strength and depth to go a long way.
Obviously, they're a team with momentum, a team sort of without that after flattering to see even the last World Cup is Germany. I mean, Joachim Löw has really got to conjure up something special if he's going to continue as Germany manager beyond this tournament. Certainly do a lot better than obviously the World Cup in which they crashed out in the group stage. Brandon, I mean, what do you think of Germany coming into this tournament? I mean, we all know they're a team that are hard to beat. England could be playing them at some point. You know, the group sort of line up. How strong do you think they're going to be coming into this tournament?
They're one of the teams I worry about. I think it's coming to the end of an era for a lot of the players in that team, and you saw it last time they played in a major tournament. They really didn't look good, and they crashed out, unsurprisingly, after the way they played. But there's a lot of issues in the team that still I don't think have been resolved. It's like Manuel Neuer he's a phenomenal goalkeeper, but there is a strong argument that you could have ter Stegen in the goal, and he'd probably do a better job. And along with their centre-backs that are ageing constantly, they make so many mistakes, and again, that hasn't really been solved. And while they have some phenomenal players, and while they've got Kroos in the midfield, and they have some good players going forward like Werner, that has slowly but surely taken over, they're still not that convincing. When they play in the major tournaments, they still look like they worry. Like there's something that they can't get over, and in a group that they're in, I don't think they're going to get out of it. I think that out of the top two spaces, I don't think, and I just don't think they'll be good enough to do it, because I think France are so much better than them, and Portugal obviously they won the tournament last time, so I'd actually say that they'd probably be more favourable.
Harry, what do you think about Germany coming into this tournament? I mean, it's a really big tournament for them, really important that they improve on their performance in the World Cup, isn't it?
Yeah, well, the World Cup was obviously a big shock, but when you look at their squad there, they did have a lot of ageing players, and some of them are obviously still around. Look at someone like Neuer. Should he really be in goal anymore? I don't think so. Ter Stegen, I think, is a lot better than him now, but they seem sort of reluctant to move on from some of these ageing players. Boateng is another example at centre-back.
Mm-hmm.
They have a lot of players that really think, it's probably time to look at the younger generation. They do obviously have some young talent. Look at someone like Leroy Sané and Julian Brandt, two very good attacking players. Timo Werner up front could have a very good tournament. He's obviously being linked with big moves in the summer, so he'll be looking to impress. But you look at the group they're in with France and Portugal. I could see Germany really struggling. I think they probably will go through as a third place team maybe, but I can't see them going very far in this tournament. I just think that their squad is too reliant on old players. They haven't looked to the younger generation, and Joachim Löw I think is a bit outdated now. I think probably after the last World Cup would have been the right time for them to move on from him and look at a new manager, because I think they had a great, very successful run in major tournaments, but it was time for a change, and they obviously haven't made that change. And you saw in the Nations League they didn't impress in that either. They were actually relegated from their group in that. So I think they're going to struggle in this tournament. I can't see them going very far.
I mean, all of those teams we discussed have been in the same group. Let's move on now to Belgium. I mean, we talked about a team with strength and depth in France. I mean, the same applies to Belgium as well. Harry, I'll come to you first. What do you think of Belgium coming into this tournament? I mean, there have been question marks over Martinez as the manager in the past, but you look at their squad, players all over the park having impressive seasons. You look at De Bruyne sort of being lauded as one of the best midfielders in the world. I think he'll be instrumental. I mean, what do you think? Do you think they've got a chance of winning it? Yeah,
for me, they are one of the main favourites. You look at the squad, it's an incredible squad with players like De Bruyne, Lukaku, Eden Hazard if he's come back fit. Obviously, he hasn't had a good season with a lot of injuries, but they've got so much talent in that squad, and I think that they have to, at some point they're going to win a major tournament surely with this team. This is their version of the golden generation, and unlike England, I think they surely will win a tournament. with this squad. They've got too much talent not to. And the last World Cup, they obviously came very close. Thought they were very unlucky in that game against France in the semi-final. That was probably a tournament that they really should have won, Belgium. I thought that they did have the most talent in that tournament. They were disappointing in that semi-final, but you have to say they are one of the favourites to win the tournament with the amount of quality they've got. And Martinez as the manager, that was an appointment that a lot of people questioned. I didn't think it was the right appointment at the time, but you look at it now and he is doing a good job. And maybe it's just a case of you could put pretty much anyone in charge of that squad and they do an okay job, because they just have so many good players, so much talent, that it's hard to really get it wrong with them. And I think this is their big chance to win a major tournament, and I'd certainly back them to do it.
Brandon, are you in agreement? I mean, are you sort of quite as confident about Belgium as Harry quite clearly is?
Well, I don't know whether they would win the tournament, but they should have really, as he said, they should have really won the World Cup. Had they beaten France, they would have easily won the final. It was just a matter of they just weren't good enough on the day. Their squad is just phenomenal, and they're going into a tournament that obviously we've still got a while to go till we get to it, but Lukaku is proving that he is the striker that Man United signed when they did get him at Inter Milan, and he's done a phenomenal job. And I think that ultimately it all comes down to they score so many goals. They're one of the highest scoring teams in qualifying, and even if Hazard doesn't come back, I don't think it'd be so much of a problem, because I think they have enough creative players around them. As you mentioned, De Bruyne is fantastic. I think that's in enough to be able to supply the goals to the attackers to win the games. And they're going to boss their group, because they've obviously got Denmark, Russia and Finland. I'd be surprised if they lost any of those games, to be honest. And then it's all about knockout football, and I do wonder, because in the past, this golden generation, they've looked a bit flaky in knockout rounds. It's whether they're up for it and whether they can get the right mentality. But this is it for them. If they don't win it, they've essentially failed. And obviously, the amount of times people go on about England having a golden generation and everything, these players don't want to be that. They don't want to be. And essentially, some of these are some of the best players that have been ever in the leagues they've played in. And to have not won an international trophy would be just an absolute shock and outrage for the fans.
I mean, let's move on and talk about England. I mean, there are many talking points coming into this tournament, especially regarding the fitness of two forwards, key forwards, in Harry Kane and Marcus Rashford. Harry, I'll come to you first. I mean, what are you thinking about England coming into this tournament, and are you panicking a little bit that Kane and Rashford might not be fit? Sorry, and if so, I mean, who's replacing them at the moment for you?
Well, we have seen this before, haven't we, with the likes of Wayne Rooney in the past, where he hasn't been fit in the season. He's suffered injuries, and we've sort of rushed him back for the tournament, and it hasn't gone well. So we'd like to think we wouldn't do this time. Hopefully Kane will be fit and Rashford will be fit, but if they're not 100%, then should we risk them? Should we include players and be reliant on players that aren't able to give their best? I don't think we should do that. I think we have enough other talent in the squad to do well. We have a lot of good attacking options, like Sancho and Sterling, and obviously there's lots of potential options for the striker with people like Tammy Abraham. So I think England have a good chance this tournament. Certainly it's their best chance they've had to win a major tournament for a while, with the semis and the final being at Wembley. Also, all the group games are at Wembley for England. So hopefully, if they can get to the semi-final, then you'd say from then on, those games being at Wembley, they have as good a chance as anyone. But they do have, although their group is fairly easy with Croatia, Czech Republic and a playoff winner, England shouldn't have any problems with those games, especially them being at home. But then in the next round, if they do top the group, they'll end up playing one of those teams from Group F. We've mentioned some of them already, and they are going to be a tough game if they're playing someone like a France or a Portugal in the next round. How will they cope with that? We haven't really seen England, under Southgate at least, in one of these big knockout games in the tournament against a top team. We saw them against Croatia in 2018, and they couldn't win that game. They failed there. So they had quite an easy run to the semi-finals in that tournament. In this tournament, they're not going to have an easy run to the semis and the finals. So it's going to be a lot of tests for this England team. But they certainly have the talent, in my opinion, to go far, and they are certainly contenders to win the tournament.
I mean, Harry just mentioned there that 3 of those games, at least, for England are going to be at Wembley. I mean, how big a factor do you think that's going to play into the success for England in this tournament? And also, how confident are you that England can capture the imagination of the fans like they did in the last World Cup?
Well, I think the group stage shouldn't be a problem. Obviously, the only thing is against those sides, Croatia and Czech Republic, we have lost to them in the past. So as long as that doesn't come an obstacle, we should be fine in that group because you're at home. That should feel very comfortable. I mean, whenever we play at Wembley, there's very rare that we look bad. Usually with a much better side. And I do worry slightly about the team because I've got a nasty feeling that they are going to possibly rush players back that aren't fit enough. However, in modern football, players do get rushed back quick by their clubs. So if say for example Harry Kane does come back for Tottenham because they need him with relevant time, he'll probably have quite a lot of match fitness by the time the tournament goes ahead. So that shouldn't necessarily be a problem. And I think that we've got a very nice, well-rounded squad to be able to give it a go. In terms of winning it, it's very difficult to say whether we win it. I mean, we did fantastic at the World Cup and we played Belgium, and every time we played Belgium, we struggled. And they are really one of the sides really that you've got to play and you've got to try and beat because they're one of the top teams. And we're going to have to play a team like that in the round after the group stage, and it's whether we're actually able to displace one of the better teams in Europe, and that is going to be a real challenge.
Talking about the squad, I mean, are there any players in particular that you think should go? Any controversial choices from you, Harry? I'll come to you first.
Well, one position that's been much talked about is the attacking midfield position, and I think certainly for me, Maddison and Grealish are the 2 standout options there. I don't want to see players like Dele Alli and Ross Barkley included when they haven't been in form this season. We've got to pick players who've been in form, and Grealish and Maddison are young players who've been exceptional this season. Both of them I'd like to see Southgate take. I do worry a little bit with Southgate that he sort of has his favourites, and sometimes we saw with how he was picking Kieran Trippier ahead of Trent Alexander-Arnold in a lot of the qualifying games, and that was obviously a strange decision given that Trent Alexander-Arnold is probably the best right back in the world at the moment. So you hope that Southgate will pick those players that are in form, the best players. I like to see Saka at Arsenal. He's been fantastic at left back. I'd like to see him included. Left back is a position that we don't have that many options. So I think there are some big decisions ahead for Southgate, and I just hope he makes the right ones and includes those players that have been performing all season and doesn't just go with sort of the likes of players that maybe done it in the past. Someone like a Ross Barkley who yes, he's done it in the past, but this season he hasn't played a lot, and we want those players who are in form to get selected.
I mean, we talk about Kane's fitness worries. That leaves potentially a spot for up front. I mean, Callum Wilson's been desperately out of form at Bournemouth as well. He's been selected recently. I mean, people have been talking about Danny Ings, who's been in good goal-scoring form. Dominic Calvert-Lewin looks a different player since Carlo Ancelotti took over at Everton. I mean, what are you thinking of those 2 players' chances of going?
Well, I think that even if Kane and Rashford are fit, I think Danny Ings should possibly be one of the options. I think he has proven himself massively at Southampton this season, and I think he'd be a perfect option if they're not there. I mean, the problem that I have with the attackers is obviously you've got 2 very capable attackers. If, say, for example, Kane and Rashford aren't there, is you've got Ings and then you've got Abraham, and Abraham is not that experienced, although he is very good. I'd probably say I'd go with Ings, and with the debate in terms of Grealish and Maddison, I would tend to go towards Grealish. I think he's had a phenomenal season, and I think he has a lot of points, dragged Villa through some very tough games, and obviously with them being in the cup final, he could even turn it on there for them and win them a trophy. Obviously they've got to beat Man City. That's a hard thing to do, but I think that he is a very interesting option, and I'm surprised, to be honest, that he hasn't even been called up yet in the time that he's been playing in top flight this season, because he has been so good.
I mean, what about some of the other teams then, looking at generally, people like teams like Italy, Netherlands, Spain. I mean, do you think they've got a chance? Going into, I mean, those are teams sort of you'd look at on the periphery of the favourites.
Well, some of them have a chance. It's with Italy. I think they have a pretty good chance. I mean, I'm expecting them to do the good old Italy thing where they haven't had Chiellini for quite a long time because he's been out injured, and they're just going to bring him back and take out one of the younger defenders that's been performing alongside Bonucci. I'd be a bit annoyed over that if they was to do that, but they've got some very capable players. It's a shame that they're not going to have Zaniolo because he ruptured his ACL, and he would have been such a good player to see there. But they've got Ciro Immobile that has been absolutely phenomenal, and I just can't believe how many goals he scored, because he's actually in all competitions he has got 30 goals and he's only played 32 games. So that is an outstanding stat to have at club level. Now, if you look at Spain, I do tend to worry about where their goals are going to come. Yes, they have Paco Alcacer. He is quite a good striker. But then are they really going to rely on Morata to get their goals? Atletico Madrid have proven that even though he's their top goal scorer, he should really be getting a lot more goals than he has done. And I don't think that they're going to be that good. And then Netherlands, I would have put them much higher had Depay been fit, because Luuk de Jong isn't Depay. He's nowhere near the player that Depay is. And when you have Depay in that team, it makes it so much better. I think they've got such a well-rounded team. Their midfield's phenomenal. The defence with Van Dijk, and recently he's been adding goals to his game, and that is just such a really good weapon to have. But when you don't have a striker, that's going to be really hard. If they get out of their group, they should be fine with that. But then for the knockouts, I mean, anyone could score, and that's what they've got to rely on really, because it's got to be shared out rather than having just one good attacker going to get their goals.
You mentioned Immobile there. I mean, he's going to be hoping to carry his league form into the tournament. I mean, he's going to be one of the ones aiming for the Golden Boot. I mean, Harry, I'll come to you. I mean, who do you think has got a chance of winning the Golden Boot?
Definitely Lukaku is one of the favourites for me, considering he plays in a Belgium team that have Kevin De Bruyne and Eden Hazard there to provide for him. He has to be considered one of the big favourites to win the Golden Boot. I think also Mbappe as well, obviously. In the French team, he's going to get a lot of chances, but playing alongside the likes of Griezmann and Giroud, is he going to be the main man in the tournament? In the French team, I'm not sure if he will be the main man. The goals might be shared around a bit in that team. So the other options, people like Timo Werner, as I already mentioned him, for Germany, I think he could have a chance, but the Germany team, I just don't really rate them that highly. So there's other people like Lewandowski, who, if he was in a better team than the Poland team, he would certainly be one of the main contenders for the Golden Boot. But obviously, in the Poland team, he's probably not going to go that far in the tournament. Ronaldo, we mentioned him as well. He's in good form, so you back him to have a good tournament, but it just depends really how far Portugal go in the tournament. So for me, the two probably stand out names. Immobile is obviously another one, but the two for me are Mbappe and Lukaku, because I think France and Belgium will both go very far in the tournament. Harry Kane, if he's fully fit, he obviously won the Golden Boot in 2018, so you have to include him in the contenders, but I just doubt whether he will be fully fit for the tournament. So it's probably between Mbappe and Lukaku for me, but there's always normally a player that scores a lot of goals that you don't expect in these tournaments. So someone could sort of spring from nowhere and be a shock for everyone and win Golden Boot. So yeah, it's up for grabs really. Anyone could win it.
Let's wrap up with a sort of final prediction. Brandon, I think you've already sort of stated France, your sort of fancy team. Is that a dead cert for you?
I think so, because it's just too much squad depth. I mean, the fact that they're going to have Griezmann and then Mbappe the other side, and even if they didn't, let's say they didn't go with Giroud, they could have someone like Ben Yedder, who has been great for Monaco. There is so many goals in that team, and I honestly think that Mbappe is probably going to have the best tournament that he could have at his age. I think he's going to outshine Griezmann, and I think he's going to be their best player. I think he's really going to step it up, and because he's looking to possibly leave PSG, and that is ultimately when you want to move, you got to perform. And I think that he's been brilliant for PSG this season, and I just think that he's probably going to take it to another level, completely destroy teams.
Is it Belgium for you then, Harry?
Yeah, Belgium for me are the team I would back to win the tournament, but anyone could win it. You know, we saw in 2016 Portugal sort of came from nowhere. They weren't having a good tournament, and yet they somehow managed to scrape through the group stage, scrape through to the final, and then shock France in the final, shock the host in the final. So England, you have to say England have a chance if they've got their players fully fit, considering, as I said, the games are at semi in the final are at Wembley, so if they can get that far, they have a good chance. France, as Brandon mentioned, certainly one of the favourites with all the talent they've got. But for me, yeah, the Belgium team are just so talented that they have to win a major tournament at some point, and this could well be their time.
I mean, as much as I'd like to say England, I've got to side with Brandon with France. I think their sheer strength and depth, and also the momentum they carry into this tournament, having won the last World Cup, probably I'll just go edge with them. But that is all we've got time for in today's show. We hope you enjoyed. My thanks obviously must go to guests Harry and Brandon, and we'll see you again really soon.